This video shows how to replace the tuner dial cord in a Beomaster 6000 4-channel. If you like this video and you would like to see more information, please visit my blog at beolover.blogspot.com or go to my website at www.beolover.com. Enjoy! This figure is from the Beomaster 6000 service manual. It shows essentially how the dial cord is to be installed properly. And what we see here is that we go from the main potentiometer wheel with two windings around the pulley, and it's very important that we come in here from the top and then go down and leave the pulley at the bottom. We will see later on that is the main reason that this pulley is a little bit lower than the potentiometer wheel. This enables to keep the string coming from the potentiometer wheel on top and then feed the string out towards the dial from the bottom, and this prevents that these two strings start crossing once this here is turned a few times. What we also need to do is, this is not shown here, we need actually to achieve that we have 3 turns around the main potentiometer wheel of string, otherwise we cannot move the dial tape all the way. Okay, so 3 windings here, 2 windings here, we need to come in from the top, leave at the bottom, and then the string is being fed into the dial assembly. And so we're coming in from here around the first pulley, and then we go around the top pulley, and we come back here, and then this is being fed back to the main potentiometer wheel. So this is where we come in back here. And so this goes then around the corner and then is connected to the spring, to the tension spring, and the tension spring then is in one of those holes that is in the potentiometer wheel. With this here we can essentially adjust the tension of the dial cord. As cord replacement I used fishing line. I just had this lying around. As it's a 50 pounds braided line, I wouldn't recommend the transparent nylon lines that are also available. They might not get enough traction on the main pulley. I started out with about 2.5 meters of this line, and this seems to be a pretty good length. So here we see how the cord is being wrapped 3 times around the potentiometer wheel. So it's good at that point to use a Scotch tape strip to fix the cord so it doesn't come off the wheel. And now we need to wrap it 2 times around the pulley. So we need to make sure that we come in from the top and leave at the bottom. And then we go around the guide pulley, and that's another moment where a piece of tape is helpful to fixate things in place. Okay, now we're coming back from the dial assembly and we're using the guide pulley, and now we put the cord into the gap. And so the next thing is to attach the spring to it. Of course, after fixating it with a piece of tape. And so it's good to put the spring in at the lowest tension hole in the potentiometer wheel, and then make the knot, because then you can grab the spring with a pair of pliers and move it to a further away hole in the wheel to increase the tension. Okay, and all we have to do now is cut off the fishing line. So at this point, if everything went well, we should have something that looks like this. So we have the 3 windings around the potentiometer wheel, and then we have a couple of turns around the pulley. Important that we come in from the top and leave from the bottom. Then from the main pulley we go around the lower one of the guide pulleys. When we come back from the dial assembly, then we use the upper one to go back to the wheel. This here shows how we go from the guide pulley to the dial assembly. So we're coming in here from the lower one, go around the first guide pulley on the assembly, then go all the way up and turn around here at the end, and then come back on the second one and go back to the potentiometer wheel. So once everything looks good and we can, with the main pulley, turn the potentiometer wheel all the way forward and backwards, then it's time to attach the dial band to the cord. And for doing that, we need to align the potentiometer position with the dial band back here. So what I did is I turned the potentiometer wheel all the way to the right, so that means we are basically at 108 megahertz, or a little bit higher probably. And then I adjusted the indicator band to the position that corresponds to this potentiometer setting. A good starting point for adjusting the dial band is shown here. This reflection marker is where 108 would show up on the megahertz scale once the plexiglass cover is installed. And it turns out that if one goes a little bit higher with the indicator, that corresponds to the maximum of the dial potentiometer. Once all this has been done, in the end, one can of course verify with a station where one knows the megahertz precisely whether the indicator shows the right frequency, and then if necessary one can still adjust this a little bit by repositioning the tape relative to the cord. Once everything is lined up, it's good to mark the cord on the back where it's supposed to be inserted in case something shifts a little bit. Now we need to loosen the cord again so we can insert it into the dial band. And here we go. So it's good to stick something under the band. That gives us a little bit of space underneath to pull that cord into the slot. And so this is a little bit of a dicey moment. But you see here one needs to push it in a little and get it under these teeth. Okay, and here we are. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is to retension the cord, and that can be done by simply inserting it like we see it here, the spring inserted into the same hole where it was before. That gave the cord the right tension, and then we use tweezers to pull the cord into the gap. It's really good to put tape strips everywhere to prevent the cord from slipping off in case something loosens up a little. So let's see. A little tape strip, and use tweezers to pull it in. Alright, here we go. And now we're ready for a final test. So I'm turning it now here at the pulley because that's where the dial wheel is inserted once the Beomaster is fully reassembled. And so the travel of the indicator is essentially now determined by the travel of the potentiometer wheel. This concludes my video about replacing the tuner dial cord in a Beomaster 6000 4-channel. Thanks for watching.